Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Friday Night Live, episode 90. This is unbelievable. We have been doing this Friday Night Live for 90 Fridays. SubhanAllah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless those who have been following us, viewing us, and those who have been benefiting, the people behind the technical team, Mufti Wahab, and all those who are facilitating this great experience. I hope you guys are well. Talk to me, brothers and sisters. The chat is open. I see Sister Rani Rosie joining us, and I see Amelia and Sister Muhammadi. I see my friend, I think Taha Asad joining us. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We have people joining us from all across. I am doing well. As you guys all know, schools are ending here in America. I hope all across the world people are going to have some summertime with their family. We have Yasser Suleiman joining us. Welcome, everyone. Like I said, as you join, let me know you join. I love attention. And when you come and you let me know you're there, I thrive off of it. It's fuel for my energy. And so tonight we have very special guests. They'll be joining us. We have Shaykh Ramadan Elsabagh, based out of Dallas, Texas. I had the great fortune to be with him in the month of Ramadan, Haram, and he will be joining us live, inshallah, with beautiful recitation in a minute. Then I have Mufti Wahab, of course, my dear brother, who will also be co-hosting this. And most importantly, our scholar and our chief guest tonight is our Ustad, one of our teachers, one of our mentors, Mufti Aasim Rashid. And we've had Mufti Aasim on before, many of times, and it's a very difficult experience when you're hosting your teacher, because if you know anything about me, I sometimes in virtual I slip away and I start to make statements that I later on regret. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive, and whatever I say with good intention, inshallah. I'd like to invite on Shaykh Ramadan. Everybody that's joining us, please welcome Ahlan wa sahlan. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh Ramadan.
وعليكم السلام يا أهلا يا أهلا يا أهلا.
الحمد لله. كيف الصحة؟
الحمد لله الحمد لله.
الحمد لله. Sheikh, are you in your office in Dallas?
نعم أنا في المكتب، في مكتب التحفيظ.
ما شاء الله ما شاء الله.
نعم.
Sheikh, just quickly tell us what you're doing in Dallas. What is your program? People hear you come join Miftaah Friday Night Live. We would like to hear some of your efforts that you're doing. جهودك في Dallas.
I'm doing Salat al-Fajr every day, then I stay from 6 to 8 teaching the advanced level of الإجازة والقراءات. يعني عندي طلاب يقرؤون
ما شاء الله
ورش وشعبة وقالون وحفص، فأنا أجعل لهم الوقت في الصباح من الساعة 6 إلى الساعة 8، ثم بعد ذلك من 8 إلى 2 الآن يعني في الصيف، يعني بقالنا عندنا الآن we had like 1 week in the summer program. We have full-time program. We have around 70 kids or more. Then we start teaching from 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
Wow.
Then we have another shift for the full-time program from 2 to 7. Every day, Monday to Friday.
So basically from 6 to 6 أنت مقيم أو لازم في المسجد
from 6 to 7.
6 to 7.
Yes. في هذا المكان.
ما شاء الله. So Sheikh, ما شاء الله, this is where the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه.
أسأل الله عز وجل أن يكون فيه النفع.
Ameen. Sheikh just has explained to me his schedule of Quran teaching. At 6 o'clock, he starts to teach Quran to advanced level of reciters who want to get ijazat, which is permission, certification on the multiple different dialects of recitation. And then at 8 o'clock, 8 to 2, he has Quran class and educational programs. Then 2 to 7, back to advanced Quran education. 5 days a week, the Sheikh is doing this. Yes. This is unbelievable. This is how people like Shaykh Ramadan, who are sitting in Dallas, in the world really, doesn't know the efforts that are happening of Quran, the khidmat, the service of Quran. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept the Shaykh and make the Quran hujjah lana wa la alayna, a means of our salvation. Inshallah, we'd like to ask Shaykh Ramadan to recite some Quran for us.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تبارك الذي نزل الفرقان على عبده ليكون للعالمين نذيرا. الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض ولم يتخذ ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يتخذ ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك وخلق كل شيء وخلق كل شيء فقدره تقديرا. واتخذوا من دونه آلهة لا يخلقون شيئا وهم يخلقون. ولا يملكون لأنفسهم ضرا ولا نفعا ولا يملكون موتا ولا حياة ولا نشورا. وقال الذين كفروا إن هذا إلا إفك افتراه. وقال الذين كفروا إن هذا إلا إفك افتراه وأعانه عليه قوم آخرون. فقد جاءوا ظلما وزورا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. من جاء بالحسنة فله خير منها ومن جاء بالسيئة فلا يجزى الذين عملوا السيئات إلا ما كانوا يعملون. إن الذي فرض عليك القرآن لرادك إلى معاد قل ربي أعلم من جاء بالهدى قل ربي أعلم من جاء بالهدى ومن هو في ضلال مبين. إن الذي فرض عليك القرآن لرادك إلى معاد قل ربي أعلم من جاء بالهدى ومن هو في ضلال مبين. وما كنت ترجو أن يلقي إليك الكتاب إلا رحمة وما كنت ترجو أن يلقي إليك الكتاب إلا رحمة من ربك فلا تكونن ظهيرا للكافرين ولا يصدنك عن آيات الله بعد إذ أنزلت إليك ولا يصدنك عن آيات الله بعد إذ أنزلت إليك وادع إلى ربك وادع إلى ربك ولا تكونن من المشركين. صدق الله العظيم.
MashaAllah. Takbir. Allahu Akbar. Tabarakallah. Shaykh Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept. تقبل الله منكم حسن هذه القراءة. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. اللهم نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يجعلنا من الذين يقرؤون القرآن آناء الليل وأطراف النهار وجعلنا من أهل القرآن وخاصته يا شيخ. تبارك الله. Thank you so much, Shaykh.
إياكم إن شاء الله.
Shaykh, we will inshallah hope to visit you. inshallah نتمنى اللقاء قريبا. وإن شاء الله أدعوكم إلينا أيضا في عندنا مدرسة في ميشيغان، ولاية ميشيغان، تحضر معنا يا شيخ إن شاء الله قريب.
إن شاء الله سعيا على الأقدام أو زحفا على الرأس.
بارك الله شيخ، بارك الله فيك. أكرمك الله، أكرمك الله وزادك الله خيرا وعلما وبركة إن شاء الله. بارك الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We're very fortunate, very lucky to have Shaykh Ramadan recite for us. And I asked him to visit us here in Michigan, and we hope to visit him in Dallas, inshallah. If you're in that Dallas area, please benefit from Shaykh Ramadan, from the Quran programs, the teachings that the shuyukh have. Wherever you are, beautify your recitation. Now we're moving towards our main segment of our program, where we have our tier teacher, Mufti Aasim Sab, Mufti Wahab Sab. I would like everyone to welcome them. Join me in welcoming them. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Mufti Sahib, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, I'm doing great, mashallah.
MashaAllah, we're so excited you're joining us, and you're in Michigan, Mufti Abdul Wahab. How are you doing, Mufti Wahab?
Alhamdulillah, Bijam, I'm just here so I don't get fined. Like how?
No, we're happy you're back in Michigan too.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
You know, you were in Australia, and you were gone to see your in-laws. What a difficult trip that must have been to see. You know, like people go for Umrah, people go for Hajj. People go see their friends, to go see their in-laws. God help you.
It looks like you're speaking from experience.
No. So Mufti Sahib, Mufti Aasim Sahib, you know, I want to welcome you properly. I know you're sitting here with us in Michigan. We have the honor of having you, hosting you here in Michigan. Everyone that's joining us for the first time, that's seeing our teacher, Mufti Aasim Sahib, he has been teaching us, helping us, mentoring us since we were kids, and we're still young in front of his eyes. And when you look at Mufti Aasim Sahib on camera, you think he is the same age as Mufti Wahab. It's mashallah. He has not aged much, especially on camera. And, you know, he's kept himself well in good shape. So don't get deceived by his youth. But reality, his seniority in education and teaching and mentorship is very, apparent to all of us. All of us brothers are indebted to him. Back in Canada, when we were young, when we joined the school and the boarding school, Shaykh Aasim was an older brother to us, took care of us, and he became a teacher to us, all of us. And we've kept a very deep bond with him. A lot of our teachers, we respect and love them, but somehow it's destiny, it's qadr that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us, you know, so connected, and we really respect him and love him. And I want to say this to all the students who are out there, you know, it's important for us to have our connection with our teachers. And we don't do enough for them. And Mufti Aasim Sahib has taken out his time graciously to join us from Canada. Mufti Aasim Sahib was for many years in Australia. And I remember the last time you joined us, you were in Australia. And I had suggested to you back then to please move back to Canada, back to the United States. And you gave this.
Yeah, he obliged your suggestion, right? Is that what you?
No, he gave this very, very intense smirk, and it could mean like, you mind your business, right? Or it could mean, inshallah, So whatever it meant that you did come back, and we're so happy that you have relocated yourself in your original country, which is Canada. And so Mufti Sahib, please forgive us for our shortcomings. How has your trip been in Michigan so far?
Alhamdulillah, as always, I think it's been very productive. Time has been used very, very wisely, possibly very intensely. working with the students and spending time with you brothers, going over each area and each department of the institution, and hearing from you brothers what you've been doing, and then taking your questions, um, and then processing that and giving you my feedback or my suggestions, um, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts in my heart. It's always it's always something very warming when you see growth, especially in someone that you've had the chance to work on. And for a teacher, their greatest asset is those people who have studied with them. That is their, teachers look at people who've studied with them as a source of salvation, as a source of najah, as a sadaqah jariyah. And when you see growth in that, and and witness the impact of that, it's an extremely um, powerful feeling of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also, there's a sense of pride. It does come into the teacher that, he's proud of the work that, his students, his companions are doing. So,
Mufti Saab, we are completely indebted to you. Mufti Saab, can you just tell us, what are you teaching since you've arrived in Michigan? What courses, what subjects have you been teaching at our seminary, which is Michigan Islamic Institute?
we are right now just focusing on Mishkat al-Masabih, the Hadith book. It's a very important Hadith text. It's a very large Hadith text, and because they're, you can say, for those students in relation to this book, the year is just starting. So we just did the commencement of the book, and we just kind of dived into it, and we're in the early sections and chapters. Alhamdulillah, any kind of engagement or occupation with hadith, the blessed words and actions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is simply, it's a privilege, it's an honor for us to have any kind of engagement with it. So alhamdulillah,
Alhamdulillah.
thank Allah Azza wa Jal.
May Allah accept your coming and your teaching. Mufti Saab, you're teaching such a big and very important hadith book. People are probably wondering, how does Shaykh Mufti Aasim teach this book? Mufti Aasim Saab has been teaching over Zoom during COVID from Australia, and our students for the past 2 years, early morning, 7, 8 o'clock, couple of hours every single day. Our students have been benefiting. Multiple classes have now graduated who are students, and now this was Australia. Now Mufti Aasim Saab is back, and we are in great interest in having him closest as possible, not just spiritually or by spirit, but also in physical proximity. And now we have your dear friend, student, Shaykh Abdul Wahab, next to you, and he had the privilege to study with you in Vancouver for 2 years, where he did his takhassus, specialization in fiqh and jurisprudence. And I remember when he was going to Vancouver, I was questioning his choice. I was like, why are you going to Vancouver for specializing in fiqh and jurisprudence and Islamic theology and fiqh? We were always suggesting you should go to Karachi, maybe Medina, maybe some place where there's more access to scholars. And subhanAllah, I don't think they could have, I'm no disrespect to any institution or any scholars, but for a person to go to his teacher, to give him such direct attention, we probably had 3-4 students who were mastering the science of fiqh, and Shaykh Abdul Wahab was one of them. So Mufti Abdul Wahab, how was that experience in being with him for 2 years, your ustad, and now he's seeing your work that you're doing? I mean, it must be a source of pride for your teacher, but at the same time, that decision and how that was that experience, if you don't mind speaking.
That's a heavy question. I think it will require a lengthy answer. I'm not as eloquent as Mufti Aasim Saab, so it won't take me a few seconds. But it was an experience.
So one thing I do want you to remember is that in the presence of your teacher and your older brother, you should speak very less.
That's what hence I preface my answer with that. I was. But you asked me a heavy question, so I think Inshallah, we'll respond to that in the absence of our teacher, inshallah. But it was a beautiful experience. And I think for most people that are watching, from your teachers, you not only learn the content that is being taught from the books, but you're also learning everything else that comes with it. Al-ilmu fi as-sudur, la fi as-sutur. The whole concept that knowledge is in the chest, not inside of the lines of the book. So the biggest benefit of being there was we had constant access to our teacher, Mufti Aasim Sahib, and we were able to just pick his brain with everything. So sometimes it wasn't even a question that was being asked from us of a fiqhi stance or a question in regards to Allah. It was just a personal question that we would have and would benefit in every way possible. So, alhamdulillah. Now it's amazing to have him next to us and have him.
People, you were there. Mufti Aasim Sahib was still young. Let me grab his book for 1 second.
Okay, please.
You were there, and Mufti Aasim Sahib was probably doing work. He's writing books and teaching and stuff like this. And now, last night, I was sitting with him. We had, what the benefit of Mufti Aasim Sahib coming to Michigan, sitting with us, and sometimes he's surrounded by other scholars and other people who are interested. He's just giving us exclusive time, and we're able to talk to him, learn from him, see the work he's done. And I hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I wish and I pray that Allah gives you a long life with afiyah and barakah, Shaykh Aasim. And he has from his teachers, you could see the amount of tawajjuh, amount of reliance they have on Shaykh Aasim. So we're benefiting from him. He was showing me his book yesterday, and which is called Obeying the Messenger. This book is by Sheikh Yusuf bin Sulaiman Mutala, rahmatullah alayhi, rahmahullah, the founder of the first Islamic seminary, Darul Ulum, in the Western world, Darul Uloom Bury. And Mufti Aasim Sahib, he did the translation and annotation of this book. And when you look at the book from outside, this is what happened. I'm speaking so much. I'm going to give Mufti Aasim the Yeah, I was sitting in the hotel and I saw the book, plastic wrapped so nicely,
And you just asked. You
I did ask Mufti Sahib. I asked him, what is this? And I was like, is this the book that you've been working on? I know he was working on it. He was finishing the final touches in Medina Munawwara. I met him in December. And Mufti Aasim Sahib, some people in Orlando asked me to bring some copies. And I said, oh, good for them. But then I said, how many do you have? He said, only 3. I said, well, one person's not going to get it. I'm going to take it. So he said, wait. He told me the background, how they requested. I said, well, too bad. I opened up the plastic cover and I made Mufti Aasim Sahib write a nice small passage for me and, sign it. And I can't tell you how good this book is. I don't want to even open it up because this inside for a student of knowledge has the English writing, the Arabic writing, the Urdu poetry, the Persian poetry, the translation, the English, the format, everything is so beautiful. So Mufti Aasim Sahib right now is in the process of publishing 17 books. And one of them is the tafsir of Surah Yusuf. And that's what leads me towards this discussion. Shaykh Aasim, in Surah Yusuf, you covered, and last night I made a video with him for 14 minutes, a summary of the tafsir that he's doing. And I saw this, the format and the work that he's done, unbelievable. And it's going to be something the English audience has not seen. I've seen a lot of tafsirs. Even this is Ita'at Rasul and the Messenger of that book on the Prophet Sunnah. Nothing like this in English. And I've read in Urdu. There's a lot of work, but English is, we need something. So alhamdulillah, Mufti Aasim Sahib, with this discussion of Surah Yusuf, tonight's discussion is on greed. And when you were doing the tafsir of Surah Yusuf, and you must have taught this for so many years, and you've created a curriculum for your college that you were in Australia, Melbourne, Australia, for many years at Sirat College. You made a school curriculum for the tafsir of the surah. What is the entire synopsis of this? We can't say synopsis, but what led to this experience of Yusuf alayhi salam's trouble, and how did this topic become so important to you on greed, Shaykh Aasim?
Jazakallah khair for asking the question, because these are some of those areas of personal reform and knowledge that we don't really understand them with the depth that they require. a difficult concept requires more time to understand than an easy concept, especially when the issue itself may not even be visible to us. In fact, there is another lens that we are looking through at that time that does not allow us to see the problem within. We're not able to see it. The reason why this topic came up is because Yusuf alayhi salam's brothers, just like him, were the sons of a prophet. And I started thinking that look at what their background is and their upbringing that comes with that background. The environment that they've been in since their childhood, it's pristine, it's noble, it's sacred, it's very, very pure. How then does a person with so much culture and tradition and upbringing, and then the suhbah of none less than one of the great messengers of Allah, get to a point where he's ready to take the life of his brother? What got them there?
Wow.
So the idea that emerged is that greed and ambition brings out the worst version of a human being. It doesn't matter who they are or who they were.
Wow.
This is such a disease that it brings out the worst possible version of what one can be. In addition to that, the greed or the ambition was coming, it was coming on their tongues when they said yakhlu lakum wajhu abikum. What we want is the exclusive attention of our father.
Wow.
Okay, so someone might ask, all right, what was that really about? I mean, they're not kids anymore. It's not like, oh, Baba doesn't play with me anymore. It wasn't like that. These are now, they're young men. So I started thinking, what is it? What does this mean? The attention of the father at that age, what really does it define? Because it's not fathomable that Yaqub alayhi salam would have neglected them in their previous years, and now all of a sudden they feel deprived. No, there's something else here. It was, in fact, and this was a non-issue until Yusuf alayhi salam came into the picture. So it was because Yaqub alayhi salam could see the signs of that were promising that he's going to be someone very great. From his very young childhood, it became apparent that Yusuf is not going to be an ordinary person at all. It wasn't just his grace and charm. It was his qualities, his piety, his honesty, all of those things. So when it comes to prophets, it's not about, okay, we don't want him to have a share of the inheritance or the estate that he's going to leave behind, because Anbiya alayhi salam do not leave any estate behind. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Nahnu ma'ashar al-anbiya ila nurath ma taraknahu sadaqa." There is no inheritance of material possessions when it comes to prophets alayhi salatu wasalam. Whatever they leave, it is charity. It becomes charity the moment they leave this world. So there was no possibility of them having an ambition to inherit the wealth of Yaqub alayhi salam and cut Yusuf alayhi salam out of it. That was also ruled out. So what's left? In fact, it was the prominence that came with being an heir of Yaqub alayhi salam. Who gets to carry on his message? Who gets to take his place as the figurehead, as the key person, as the one who holds all the influence? Who gets to be that person? And they said, well, you know what? There's not enough of it to go around for everyone. And him, because we feel threatened by him, he needs to be eliminated. He is the problem. And it's very it's very sweet how the Quran accurately says their words. I'm saying it's sweet because in the end, they said, وَتَكُونُوا مِن بَعْدِهِ قَوْمًا صَالِحِينَ. After this, we're going to be good people.
Yep.
We just need to get rid of this one issue that is threatening our future and the future of our families. Let's just do this one bad thing, and then we're going to be good for the rest of our lives. So that, what we call devolvement, the decline from, in mindset, in akhlaq, in intention, from such a high rank all the way down to essentially planning a murder, that must have been really something. And it feels like these are the messages that the Quran wants us to take from the surah, just from the way that it's worded and the attention that's given to specific details, because there's no extra details in the Quran. The way the Quran highlights certain things and makes mention of certain things is it itself is a lesson in how to reflect on the Quran. Khair. So ultimately, all we're left with is greed and ambition that revolves around prominence. And this part of it is very dismaying. It's very frightening that it was a prominence related to religion. It was not a political prominence.
Wow.
It was not a worldly prominence. It was a religious prominence.
Wow.
And it is extremely, extremely frightening. And the hadith of Tirmidhi comes to mind, where Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam says that ما ذئبان جائعان أرسلا في غنم, in one riwayah في زريبة غنم بأفسد لها. If you were to take two starving wolves and send them into a herd of sheep, they could not do more damage. I mean, what are two hungry, starving wolves going to do? What are they going to do to that flock of sheep? They're going to tear them to pieces. But even those two starving wolves could not do as much damage as greed for wealth and prominence damages a person's deen.
La ilaha illallah.
So the Prophet ﷺ identified an element that is destructive. And what does it destroy? It destroys a person's deen. And in the other hadith, in the hadith of Muslim from Jabir radiallahu anhu, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ittaqu shuh." You have to beware of this greed. And shuh is a very powerful word, because it means basically wanting to have more for yourself. It's the tendency to have more. Greed is not an accurate translation for shuh, but in the context that it's used in these ahadith, it is a fair translation for it, because it means you want more for yourself, which means less for others. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, it's what destroyed the people before you. It led them to the brink of shedding blood and making halal whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had prohibited. And in the other narration, it said that it led them to أمرهم بالقطيعة فقطعوا. يعني it led them to severing ties with their relatives, so they did it. It led them to shedding blood, so they did it. It led them to open disobedience. أمرهم بالفجور ففجروا. So they became completely disobedient. So the Prophet ﷺ is telling us that, and as we know, the hadith is simply an explanation of what the Quran has summarized. So there is Rasulullah ﷺ explaining this concept that the Quran has raised. He is elaborating on it and telling us more about it. And so yes, what did it do to the brothers of Yusuf? It led them to shedding blood. They were prepared to shed blood. And when they came to the conclusion that, just cold-blooded murder is not the right thing to do right now. Let's get rid of him through some other way. How elaborately they planned this scheme, this sort of facade of, falsifying evidence, bringing it back, coming back late at night with crying faces. وَجَاءُوا أَبَاهُمْ عِشَاءً يَبْكُونَ, crying. And they said, this and the whole story behind it, and it goes on from there. But what was at the core of all of that? It was this one key element. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Someone who's saved from the avarice or the greed of their own self, that person has succeeded.
SubhanAllah.
And whatever I'm telling you, whatever I'm sort of summarizing here, these are just excerpts from the tafsir of Surah Yusuf, the glory of Yusuf.
Mufti Aasim Sahib.
All of this is there. All of this is in the book itself.
All of it's in the book. Mufti Wahab, it's we're in this field of teaching and also sometimes doing events, and you see a lot of we don't have, majority of us don't have our attraction could be less for money but more for fame, because you're in the limelight more. Someone could be in the bank or in money, in this pursuit of money. Both of these things are destructive. Mufti Wahab, I want you to ask Mufti Sahib. I need you to speak, because if I don't have you speak, I feel like I've done.
You asked me to speak. You asked me to speak. Wow, subhanAllah.
Yeah, so I want you to ask Mufti Sahib a question, because I wouldn't ask you a question when Mufti Sahib is around.
So I think the continuation of that same discussion is like, so if the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam, who were raised in such a household, because we often hear that the household, the environment is what helps grow and nurture the children. And these children have been nurtured in this household for so many years. And now comes a time where this greed of theirs has, made them want to kill their brother, the greed of prominence. So how do we avoid it within our families? How do we avoid it within our circles? Because as you were mentioning, it wasn't as if there was a lacking of something from the parents. A lot of times when things like this happen in our families, one child goes one way, another, son or daughter goes another way. Parents take a lot of blame upon themselves. And in most of those cases, there was never a lacking of anything. There was just a situation that had risen. So how do we, A, balance the guilt-tripping concept, and B, how do we avoid the situation from the start of it, if there's a way of doing it?
Just like there is a process of treating oneself for these types of spiritual ailments, or one might use the term cleansing oneself, purifying oneself from these spiritual ailments. This shuh and greed is also something that we can take some steps as precautionary steps, preventative steps, and some steps to address it, once it's identified. Once it's identified that this exists, because it is identifiable through its symptoms. Why is so-and-so moving ahead? Why is so-and-so getting such and such thing? Why is so-and-so? And a lot of these things are interconnected with other issues, jealousy and envy is there. Hatred and animosity is there. These are all interconnected. So preventative steps, the way our mashayikh did tarbiyah of their students and their close ones, those who had come to them for this, was about removing the desire for prominence in their hearts. If you don't mind, I'll share a story. It just came to my mind. Shaykh Masiullah Khan rahmatullahi alayh, who was one of the senior successors of Shaykh Ash'ari Thanwi rahmatullahi alayh, talks about how Maulana Ash'ari Thanwi rahmatullahi alayh was so gifted and talented in this field of tazkiyah. He narrates a story that Mullah Ashraf Ali Tanwi, Nawwarallahu marqadahu, enters into the masjid there at their institute. And there is there are two people sitting in the first saf reading Quran. When he entered and sat at the back, he was with somebody. One of those people who was sitting reciting the Quran felt that, the Shaykh is sitting directly behind me and my back is facing my Shaykh. And he said, it's not appropriate for me to be sitting with my back towards the Shaykh. So he moved over. He moved over and sat very close to the other person who was there reading Quran. Now, the Shaykh notices that this person got up, left his spot, and went and sat right next to this person. Of course, when somebody comes and sits right next to you and you're in the middle of something, you look up and you see, okay, who is this? What's going on? And there's a slight interruption. So Shaykh Tanwi, rahimahullah, called that person. And he said, you were sitting over there. Why did you move over there next to that person? He said, because Shaykh, I felt that the place where you sat, my back was facing you. I felt it was disrespectful, so I moved my place. He said, yeah, but that's fine. But do you know that when you went over, you disturbed that person's recitation? You distracted him. He was in the middle of an act of worship, and you distracted him. Just even in this is like there's a lesson that, the holier than thou approach. That I'm doing something very, very noble. I'm doing something, it's very high. It's very, elevated. You know what? It needs to be grounded in Sharia. You know what? If in the process you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, then that means that thing is not as good as you think it is.
Wow.
But the story doesn't stop there. The Shaykh admonished him and said, look, you disturbed that person's worship. And you do not have the right to do that, regardless of why you moved from your place. Subhanallah. If it was someone else who was saying, oh, mashallah, so much adab, so much respect for your Shaykh. You could not bear that your back is towards your Shaykh. Wow, you're just amazing. It was none of that. It was none of this fake stuff. No, you did something inappropriate. So he asked him that, okay, so what should be the consequence for this? So the man said that, Shaykh, whatever you say, I'm ready to do it. Whatever
So there's going to be a consequence of this also.
There's going to be a consequence for this because there's a lesson that needs to be taught. It doesn't get taught just with words.
Can you tell us a little bit about these consequences? Because sometimes, people like us, we just advise and that's it. We're going ahead.
I'll explain, but I want you to hear the rest of the story because you'll see how it works. The story will explain how these consequences work. And it also sheds light on how profound their understanding of the deen, but also their understanding of the nafs and the ruh was. So what the Shaykh said, the man said that I will do whatever you say, whatever you prescribe as a consequence, I'm ready for it. Well, Ashraf Ali Thanwi said, what do you mean? He says, you did the thing, and I should tell you what the consequence is? You tell me what the consequence should be. You decide for yourself what should be a corrective measure. He says, okay, I'll stand at the entrance of the masjid and just sit there and fix people's shoes as they're walking in for my own islah, for my own rectification. Now we would have said, oh wow, amazing, this person has so much desire for rectification, Mullah Ashraf Ali Thanwi was, he was far beyond that. He said, oh, really? All that's going to do is get everyone to admire your tawadu'. Everyone is going to walk by and say, wow, what a committed khadim of the masjid. This person is so dedicated. This person is so humble. Look at them. They're just sitting there fixing people's shoes. He says, no, that's only going to boost your ego. He said, okay, maybe I'll go outside and I'll sweep the compound. He said, yeah, then everyone who sees you is going to say, wow, what a committed person. So selfless, just on his own. He's picking up a broom and a mop and there he goes, he's cleaning. He says, no, that's going to add to it. So the man really started thinking that I have to take a corrective measure, but it also has to be a corrective measure that does not feed my ego through some other channel.
Wow.
Interesting.
So he thought and thought and thought, and the man said, he said, Sheikh, there's one thing that I think that will do this, what you are saying, and it will not have any of the disadvantages that you mentioned, and that is I should leave from here. I should leave from here and go and make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then come back. Shaykh said, there is the solution. Because when you leave, you will be leaving under the suspecting eyes of people. People are going to start doubting you, and you're going to have to live with that. People are going to say, oh, maybe he was kicked out. He was expelled. The Shaykh is not pleased with him. The Shaykh is angry with him. And he said, psychologically and emotionally, it's going to be very difficult for you to carry that burden. And then you're going to go and make tawbah, and then you're going to come back. And you're going to come back to a place that you don't necessarily want to, because people will be looking at you with that eye. So in that you will be corrected.
Wow.
So you see the depth. There is nothing superficial. Now, half of the stuff that we're doing, it's so superficial. Our talks, our actions, even our corrective measures, a lot of them are just formality. Those who get tawfiq to do them, it's not deep enough to actually address the core of the issue, and this is why we continue to suffer. And in other ways, we pick up other issues and other problems, other problematic behaviors and attitudes and sentiments and so on and so forth. So the Quran is shifa'un lima fi sudur. It's a cure for all of the ailments and all of the sicknesses that are within, if we approach it in that way, and we use it for ourselves in that way.
That's a heavy price to pay for that, huh?
Yeah, someone might say that, look, it was a very insignificant thing that most people today would not even make note of something like that. But the Shaykh, in that one act of that person, identified many potential issues. And so he took such a measure, he dealt with the person in such a way that many, many issues were fixed.
Yeah.
So you asked that, how do we save ourselves? The first thing is that our mashayikh did tarbiyah of their students and their disciples in such a way that the zeal and the greed for prominence was erased from the beginning. They were taught how to be khadims of deen and not expect anything, and not expect any type of acknowledgement for it, to remain unknown, and to do things in such a way that no one, even if somebody tried, they would not know that such and such person is behind such a great achievement. This was the manner of tarbiyah that was adopted. And there's a long tradition behind this. Remember the words of Imam Shafi rahimahullah, who said that I wish this knowledge of mine was shared with the whole world and no one knew where it came from. It was never attributed to me.
Wow.
I was reading about Allama Mawardi rahimahullah in two books of Allama Mawardi that are very, very famous. One is his tafsir, and the other is Al-Ahkam al-Sultaniyya, which he wrote for kings and rulers of countries to teach them the ahkam of running a country. Al-Ahkam al-Sultaniyya. He wrote these books, but he did not allow for them to be published. And it was his wasiyah that until I die, they should not be published, because I have fear that my intention might change. So the desire for prominence was eradicated from their systems, and that's probably why they got so much done. And us, before we even do anything, we want, hey everyone, I'm here. I want the acknowledgement. I want the appreciation. I want the pat on the back. I need to be pampered. I need to be told that I'm doing something great. Okay, for somebody who's really, really in the beginning or very, very weak, yes, these things might help them move forward, but there comes a time when this becomes the expectation, it is detrimental. So these are some of the preventative measures. The other thing is, okay, let's say if somebody has it, they have to exercise acting, behaving, and doing their work in ways that keeps them away from the pitfalls that come with prominence. So this will vary based on the person. What exactly is it that they need to do? It will be different for a student of knowledge who has a specific scope of activities. It'll be different for a teacher of knowledge. It'll be different for somebody who has a very prominent seat or position in an organization or in society. It'll look different for different people. But really, we need to go to people who can help us with this, because it's not all theory, it's practical, and people who can help us get over some of these things.
Mufti Aasim Saab, Jazakumullah khair, Mufti Wahab. Very good question in conquering this disease of greed. When you look around the world today, and the Prophet ﷺ had predicted, اتقوا الشح فإن الشح أهلك من كان قبلكم أو كما قال. And exactly how he said that, and he predicted it is happening today. If we're not going, I don't want on a academic basis and the students of knowledge, people who are in the interest of rectifying themselves, purifying themselves, even the average person who's out there thinking about, man, I forget prominence. I'm all I do is show off, right? Like all I do is talk about myself. All I do is post about myself. This narcissistic, like a behavior that is very prominent in our communities with social media. That's still at a very bad, but a very low level compared to Sheikh. What has happened and globally, what we're noticing is all the wars, all the family fights, all the rifts between brothers and sisters after a member of the family dies in inheritance, especially overseas. I don't know how bad it is in North America. I feel like people, mainly in those countries, people become wealthy through inheritance. In America, people do, they don't. God help them.
No, but it's not, I don't think it's sad. I think in the Western countries there are just laws that govern it better.
Yeah, and in those countries, you hit on the nail, Mufti. So what this is what I'm seeing in the world is the greed for more. America is the most powerful country in the most wealthy country in some aspects, but the greed for more, and then what that leads to: bloodshed, fasad, everything that the angels were saying. These إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة قالوا تجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء. So much bloodshed in the world just for control, prominence, money, leverage. Where could it go, and what's the extent, and why is it so bad that's happening in the world today? You can iron it down like, yeah, they want to get rid of Islam and they have this agenda. Probably that could be secondary, but overall, even the Muslims who have the same greed issue, they're doing the same thing. So it's not if they were trying to get rid of Islam, then why would Muslims try to get rid of Islam? So it's a little bit more, it's about the money, it's about the bottom line. Can you shed some light on that?
Look, what's happening in the world is nothing more than a consequence of distancing ourselves from the teachings of the Quran and the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's all it is. And the real solution to that is for us to come back in a much more meaningful way, in a much more authentic and genuine way, back to those teachings. But you touched on another area of greed that we didn't talk about earlier, and that is greed for wealth. Greed for wealth and possessions. Greed for materialistic things.
Yeah.
So their ulama have mentioned that there are two types or two levels of greed for materialistic things. One is the greed is there, the desire is there. It's not, it's above average, it's above normal. This person doesn't just want a good life for themselves. Because if somebody, just because somebody wants a decent life, they want to have a respectful life. Would you call that greed? It would be difficult to call that as greed. Somebody wants to look after their family and just make sure that everyone is okay. It's hard to call that greed, but this is a person who wants more and more and more.
Yeah.
So at that level, a person is exerting above average levels of energy and time to gain what they don't have or what they're desiring, even though what they have is sufficient.
Wow.
They're going out of their way. And you can see the details of this discussion in Allama At-Tibi rahimahullah's Sharh of Mishkat al-Masabih, Al-Kashif an Haqa'iq al-Sunan. At this level, a person is going out of their way. They're staying within general boundaries.
Mhm.
You know, they're not swindling people or doing fraud or stealing or something like that, or you know, hurting people physically for the sake of their gain. They're not. It's not that. It's just that they are kind of going out of their way just to have more. So what happens with this person is occasionally they will breach the commands of Allah. They will breach the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will happen occasionally. And if they continue down that path, their deen will erode and their connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will erode, because this type of approach, this such excessive love for dunya is not compatible with love for Allah. It's just not. So as an outcome for this, the outcome of this type of person is they will be very distanced from Allah. They will become distanced from the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inside, they will become completely hollow.
Oh my God.
Then there is another, you know, a level above that where the person is aiming to gain more and more and more at any cost. And this person will do anything. If it means they have to lie, they will lie. If it means they have to, you know, they have to cheat, they will cheat. If it means they have to hurt somebody, they will hurt somebody. If it means that they have to go and attack someone's reputation, they'll attack someone. This person has basically
No standard.
no holds barred. Everything goes. And so they're all in on this. This person,
It's all about the bottom line.
this person, because they have no ethics anymore. They have no ethics, they have no boundaries. So this person is going to damage themselves. They're going to do a lot of damage to other people. They might even gain that wealth that they're after, but they're going to give away so much of themselves in the process that there's going to be nothing left of that person.
Oh my goodness.
So these are two levels of greed for wealth.
And the first level too, Bajan, the first level in itself, I'm speaking about, it's pretty interesting. That in some ways it's even more scary, because like those are the people, I mean, we are those people that will end up saying, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, am I? I'm not really doing anything wrong. Like, I just want more, right? And that continuous drive of wanting more, what Mufti Aasim Sahib was saying, in due time will lead us to do something wrong, right? Because there's going to come a time where your openings will start to close, your permissible openings or whatever that may be, and now you will have to choose an indirect source or a different way of gaining leverage. So that those first type of people will always justify by saying, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, so everything is okay, I'm not doing anything wrong.
You really can't tell them to do anything wrong, right?
They're not.
They can feel that emptiness.
That in itself is a challenge, and it goes back to that whole situation of greed. No one can tell that anyone else is a greedy person. Like, it's very difficult to tell because something's so internal until that person starts having those symptoms. And I recall one of our teachers saying that when the symptoms come, it's like cancer. It's very hard to undo, because now it's like the brothers of Yusuf. By the time Yaqub alayhi salam saw it and he noticed it, despite him being a prophet, him having such insight, it was too late to salvage the situation. Like, it came out now, right? So,
and you're right. He actually knew about it a long time ago.
Wow.
He knew about it a long time ago. That's why when Yusuf alayhi salam in his childhood saw that dream, Yaqub alayhi salam said, لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك فيكيدوا لك كيدا. Whatever it is, don't tell your brothers. So he knew that this spirit of, it wasn't just a competitive spirit amongst brothers. It was ambition. It was, it was hatred. It was a lot of different things.
So, even in the surah, أرسله معنا غدا يرتع ويلعب وإنا له لحافظون. You can see that in that verse also, Yaqub alayhi salam wasn't comfortable sending Yusuf alayhi salam with him.
I was going to ask, a specific question.
Because it wasn't because نحن عصبة, like we're strong. It's not about being strong. He doesn't trust you.
But the fact that Yusuf alayhi salam told his brothers, that's also interesting, right?
Did he tell his brothers the dream?
Where did that come from?
Where did what come from?
The fact that the brothers found out about the dream, or did they not find it? Because they did find out about the dream.
There are very few authentic narrations that would indicate that they actually found out. There's a difference of opinion between the commentators. Some say that they found out about it, and others say that no. Yusuf alayhi salam actually did what his father told him because he was the most obedient son. Neither did he tell them, nor did Yaqub alayhi salam tell them, but they felt that Yaqub alayhi salam was so attached to this boy that, this doesn't look good for us.
Yeah.
Mufti
Abdul, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to ask him two questions quickly because we have Mufti Aasim. These are the conversations that we have behind screens. If we were sitting in his room, Mufti Aasim Sahab, this is how we will talk. With a little bit more jokes, and
are you staying control? Are you staying a little control today?
I am, because I'm super intimidated by Mufti Aasim on screen. Like I'm so scared to ask him a question.
Not in real life, you're intimidated in real life too.
In real life, he could get revenge. Right now, he can't really do it. He'll embarrass me in front of everybody. Mufti Aasim Sahab. So the question is, there's a problem I have with this. Not the greed. Maybe you could correct my language, my understanding. There's this spirit. There's this passion inside. It's not greed that motivates people to do more. Sometimes is it passion, and sometimes is it greed. There's no such thing as hoarding in Islam. But if the Sahaba didn't collect money, they used to collect money. I'm sure they collect money, because if they didn't collect money, Abdurrahman bin Auf would not have 300 horses for Tabuk. So he wasn't like, oh yeah, I have 20 horses, that's too many horses, let me keep one and give 19 away. But I'm not saying he was hoarding, he was doing business, he was having the money come and go. So he wasn't being greedy, but he was just very passionate. He wanted more. And that wanting more has become somewhat an element of success in institutions. You have 20 students, you want more students. You have 3,000 people show up to a program. You want 10,000 people to show up to a program. Now you're kind of conflicted. Am I doing this for
is it ambition or is it greed?
Is it ambitious or is it greed? And it happens to us in the educational department, and it can happen to a doctor. I have 40 patients today. I want 80 patients tomorrow. And if I have 80 patients tomorrow, I want to be able to bill 2.4 million next year, and the year after 4.1 million. So this is a great passion, and then this person gives the money in donations. Of course, there's even scholars like me and Wahab. Let's be frank. We're doing all of this, but we are not spending enough time with our family. We're not spending time with our parents. We are very busy. So if we're saying they're wrong, then how are we right? And our passion sometimes can become into greed, or can our greed not be greed and also be a passion?
I'll answer you through a dua that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam taught us. Allahumma aslih li dini alladhi huwa ismatu amri, wa aslih li dunyaya allati fiha ma'ashi, wa aslih li akhirati allati ilayha ma'adi, waj'al al-hayata ziyadatan li fi kulli khair, waj'al al-mawta rahatan li min kulli shar. O Allah, rectify for me my religion, upon which is the base of my salvation, that my salvation depends on it. So rectify it for me, meaning my religious practices, my implementation. And rectify for me my worldly life, dunyaya, in which my worldly interests are all based. Fiha ma'ashi, all my worldly needs are connected to it. So, oh Allah, rectify it for me. But also rectify my akhirah that inevitably I must return to. And make this worldly life of mine such that every type of khair only continues to increase. Every type of khair continues to ziyadatan li fi kulli khair. In every type of khair, there is an increment. And make my death such that it is a respite from all types of evil and shar. So to ask for khair to increase, there's nothing wrong with this. To have an increase of wealth, there is nothing wrong with this. It's actually, wealth by itself is neither good nor bad. Wealth by itself, the Quran has praised wealth. Allah has called it khair. In taraka khayran al-wasiyya. The Quran has called it khair. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us about positive things regarding wealth. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Ni'mal malu salih li rajul salih." Right?
Yeah.
And neither is wealth by itself something good, nor is it by itself, in and of itself, something bad. However, the Quran also talks about the pitfalls of wealth, talks about greed. It tells us about shuh. It tells us about those who are miserly and stingy. It talks about Qarun and his approach to wealth. It tells us a lot of things. This book, the Money Handbook, it has all of this detail. It starts with actually a discussion on what is wealth. Is it good? Is it bad?
What book is this?
This is one of those books that you refer to, the Money Handbook. It's actually being taught as a textbook right now, and it is being prepared for publishing for the public. It's being used in schools right now. The Money
One of the
Handbook.
books that you worked on.
Yeah. So, however, the thing is that wealth and all worldly gains come with many other tendencies. It's not just a commodity or a substance that comes into your hands or into your bank account and you have no emotional attachment to it. No, there is a huge emotional element that's involved in the acquisition of wealth, in the holding of wealth, in the increasing of wealth, and also in the spending of wealth. Now, the issue is not the wealth itself. The issue is those elements that are attached to the wealth. How do we keep ourselves free from those? That's the actual issue. If a person is in the process of acquiring wealth, or let's say acquiring more wealth, but their deen is not being affected in the sense of like the huquq of Allah and the huquq of ibad that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed on that person, they're not being compromised. Secondly, the person is not becoming a worse person through this process because of their religious practices, because of the time they're giving to Allah, the time they're giving to their rectification, the time they're giving to the deen. Because of that, it's not making them a worse person. And in the process, the wealth also happens to be accumulating. Then this is not something that we can denounce or condemn. Absolutely not. But if in the process, a person has made so many compromises that they're giving away pieces of themselves, they're compromising commands of Allah. Like in the process of acquiring wealth, they're compromising honesty. They're compromising their own integrity. They're compromising, other important aspects, even just of doing business that Islam is very particular about. Or they're compromising their salat. They're not paying their zakat. They're not fasting because, no, I need to do such and such thing, and this fasting is getting in the way. No, I'm not going to go for Hajj because I want to save more for myself or to buy such and such thing. Well, this person is going down a very dangerous path. That wealth, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ وَالْفِضَّةَ وَلَا يُنْفِقُونَها فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَبَشِّرْهُم بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. That same wealth is going to be turned into brands heated in the fire, and they're going to be branded with it. So what is, I think you touched on a very interesting point. I think that the issue is not wealth in and of itself. We don't need to talk about people having more money or less money.
Yep.
In fact, let's put everyone on an even playing ground and say everyone needs to work on themselves. Now, why am I saying that? Because, in order to have greed, you don't have to be wealthy.
Yep.
You don't have to be wealthy.
It's-
And I want to share with you a hadith of Tirmidhi and Musnad Ahmad. It's so profound. From Abu Kabsha al-Anmari radiyallahu anhu. In the beginning, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam takes 3 oaths. ثلاث أقسم عليهن. He says, I'm going to swear, take oath on 3 things, and then I'm going to tell you something important. وَأُحَدِّثُكُمْ حَدِيثًا فَاحْفَظُوهُ. So I'll leave out the first part because it's not directly associated with this. It's a very important part. 3 things Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam took an oath on.
Can you please say it and just translate it?
Okay, the first is مَا نَقَصَ مَالٌ مِّن صَدَقَةٍ. Wealth will never increase through spending in the path of Allah. It cannot. The second thing is مَا ظُلِمَ عَبْدٌ مَظْلِمَةً فَصَبَرَ عَلَيْهَا إِلَّا زَادَهُ اللَّهُ بِهَا عِزًّا. Whenever somebody is wronged, mistreated, abused, treated hurtfully, and they're patient for the right reasons, Allah, it might look like the person's being belittled or disgraced, but Allah is only going to increase that person's honor and respect. This is by oath of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And the third thing is وَمَا فَتَحَ عَبْدٌ بَابَ مَسْأَلَةٍ إِلَّا فَتَحَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ بِبَابِ فَقْرٍ. Anytime somebody opens the door of begging from people, seeking their needs from people, Allah opens up the door of perpetual poverty for that person. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said these things. Then وَأُحَدِّثُكُمْ حَدِيثًا فَاحْفَظُوهُ. He said إِنَّمَا الدُّنْيَا لِأَرْبَعَةِ نَفَرٍ. This world is divided amongst 4 types of people. رَجُلٌ رَزَقَهُ اللَّهُ مَالًا وَعِلْمًا. There's a person that Allah has given knowledge, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him wealth, but also given him the knowledge and understanding of the responsibilities that come with that wealth. فَهُوَ يَتَّقِي فِيهِ رَبَّهُ وَيَصِلُ فِيهِ رَحِمَهُ وَيَعْلَمُ لِلَّهِ فِيهِ حَقًّا. He is using that wealth to get closer to Allah, to fulfill his obligations, his dues to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but that wealth becomes a part of his system of taqwa.
SubhanAllah.
And he's using that wealth to bring his relatives closer, as opposed to what usually happens is one family member gets into wealth, they get the impression that, oh man, all of these guys are going to mooch off of me. I need to keep them away. I'm moving to another neighborhood. I'm moving to the suburbs. Moving to another city. I don't need these guys. But this person uses their wealth to bring their relatives even closer. He spends on them. He takes care of them, looks after them.
SubhanAllah.
And he always knows that there is a haqq of Allah in this wealth. And no matter how much I have, no matter how much effort I might have made, or skill or talent I might have used, Allah has a haqq on this wealth. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, هَذَا بِأَفْضَلِ الْمَنَازِلِ.
Wow.
This person has attained the highest rank.
Wow.
Through their money,
Wow.
having money, this person reached the highest rank.
Allahumma ja'alna minhum.
Amen.
Then there's another person.
Say Ameen. Mufti Sahib, please say Ameen.
Shaykh Abdullah, he's one of those.
Ameen. If there's khair in it, may Allah make us from.
Amen.
Because there's not necessarily khair in that for everyone.
That's why you move far away from us, though.
I really live far away. I live in Flint.
The second person, second type of person, رَجُلٌ رَزَقَهُ اللَّهُ عِلْمًا وَلَمْ يَرْزُقْهُ مَالًا. Allah gave this person the understanding. Ilm here is an understanding of the responsibilities that come with wealth. How to earn it, how to spend it. Where you can earn it from, and where you should be spending it. So, he's got the understanding, but he has no money. He doesn't have the capital through which he can do all of those things.
But he has great ideas.
No, he has a great intention.
Great intention. Okay. Great intention.
Because he doesn't have the money, all he can do is, he says, لو أن لي مالا, if I were to ever get wealth, لعملت فيه بعمل فلان. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ever made me wealthy, I would do exactly what person A was doing. يتقي فيه ربه ويصل فيه رحمه ويعلم لله فيه حقا. I would use this wealth to bring so much khair for people, for my family, for the ummah, and I would spend on such good cause and such good cause and such good cause, but I don't have it. So I'm happy, I'm content with that. But if ever I were to come into that type of wealth, that's what I would be doing. Look at what Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says. فَهُوَ بِنِيَّتِهِ فَأَجْرُهُمَا سَوَاء.
Subhanallah.
Allah Azza wa Jal treats him according to his intention. He never earned the wealth, he never spent it. But his intention is so noble that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises him to the rank of the first person. That's why I hesitated in saying Ameen. Because you can reach that rank even without having that wealth.
La ilaha illallah.
أجرهما سواء. Third person. رزقه الله مالا ولم يرزقه علما. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the wealth, but they did not get the understanding of the responsibilities that come with wealth. فهو يخبط فيه خبطا. He spends blindly. He's splurging there, squandering here, flaunting his wealth for people. Basically, he says, I can do this because I have the means. Why are you spending on that? Because I can. That's it. So, لا يتقي فيه ربه ولا يسر فيه رحمه ولا يعلم لله فيه حقا. He doesn't do any of those things. He says, this is my hard money. His slogan, even if he's not saying those words, his mindset is like that of Qarun. إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي. I got this through my own skill, through my own achievements. Who are you to tell me to spend in the path of Allah, to give to such and such cause, to pay zakat, or to look after family members? This is mine. No, this is mine. Don't touch it. And some people go to the extent where they'll even tell their children, no, this is mine. You have nothing to do with this. I've seen it. Even if a family member is in dire need, they say, tough luck. I went through tough times, you go through tough times as well. But this person has the means to alleviate that person's difficulty, they refuse. Some people do it with their parents, some people do it with their children, some people do it with their siblings, extended family members. So look at what that wealth has done to that person. To them, my wealth is mine, and it's simply a means of me fulfilling my desires to the furthest extent that I can. Okay, enters number 4. This guy, لم يرزقه مالا ولا علما. This person doesn't have the money, and they don't have the understanding either. Okay, he never earned the money, never spent it. Doesn't have the understanding, doesn't know about it. But he's looking at person number 3 and says, wow. Look at that person. Look what they're able to do with all of this money. Look at how many desires they're able to fulfill. Look at how many things they're able to do. If I were to ever get that kind of cash, that's what I would be doing. I'd be living like that. This person also never had the money, never spent it, never did any of those things. But فَهُوَ بِنِيَّتِهِ فَوِزْرُهُمَا سَوَاء.
Oh my God.
Allah treats him according to his intention. The sin of both of these guys is the same.
Oh my goodness.
Because this person was ready. I just need the money. I want to do all of those things. I'm just waiting for this money to come in. So we should be happy in whatever condition Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps us. And yes, there is no harm in earning an honest living, and I would go beyond that, in earning a good living. In earning a good living for our families. There's nothing in our deen that prohibits that or that tries to censor that. Absolutely not. The issue is the matters that surround all of this, the sentiments, the attitudes, the intentions, the person that we become in the process. So that's why there are so many exercises that need to be done, such as spending charitably.
Yep.
Spending charitably. This is not mine. I'm not going to tell you the whole hadith, but remember the hadith of those 3 people? One was a leper, one was blind, and one was bald. Remember that? And the angel came and they got cured, and this and this, and later on they came in the shape of a poor person. What did the first 2 people say? Oh, wait a minute. I've inherited this. I've always had this wealth, and I have a lot of expenses, so I'm sorry. The third person said, no, there was a time when I had nothing.
Wow.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cured me, and this and this. And he says, look, today, whatever you want, you take whatever you want, because it's come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You take whatever you need. I'm not even gonna tell you what to take. Take everything that you need.
Wow.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's the person we become in the process. All three of them became wealthy. But it was only the attitude of one. And then the angel said, look, all three of you have been tested. The first two failed. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away everything from them. He says, you succeeded.
My goodness.
So it's who we become in the process of acquiring our worldly life, our worldly commodities, and our materialistic gain.
Mufti Saab, Mufti Wahab, Mufti Aasim Saab. I can't say this, and none of us can say, but I just want to ask: Can we safely hope that if a person is paying their zakah on time, right, and they're paying the salah on time, they're giving time from their salah, they're giving wealth, and they're trying their best, that what can free them from that concept of وَمَن يَبْخَلْ فَإِنَّمَا يَبْخَلُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ? Like how much do we have to do to be separated from people who are bakhil, who are بعيد من الله وبعيد من الناس والسخي قريب من الله وقريب من الناس? Like, how do we know that we are somewhere generous and we are not stingy? Maybe our spouse says, well, you don't spend enough on us, but then maybe outside we're spending so much on people. Like the demands never finish at home. Like the husband wants more, the wife wants more, the kids want more, but it's good to give them. But can a person say, I give 10% of my wealth, 20% of my wealth in charity, and I not just do pray 5 times salah in the masjid, but I'm trying my best to do umrah, help my family go. How much? I mean, what can you encourage someone to do when they have, inshallah?
Look, this will vary with the situation of the person. Sahaba radiallahu anhum asked a very similar question to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the question was mentioned in the Quran. يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ? And this question of مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ, it actually implies two different things in two different places. One was who should we spend on, and the other was how much should we spend on.
Wow.
When they asked how much should we spend, يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ قُلْ الْعَفْوُ. Whatever's left over. قُلِ الْعَفْوُ. Whatever's left over, you spend it. Remember the hadith in Sahih Muslim of the person, he's walking through the desert and he hears a voice above the clouds saying, Isqi hadiqata fulan. The clouds were ordered, so the clouds moved into a specific direction. The person follows the clouds and he sees that the rain is all falling on this sort of rocky type of terrain, and that rocky piece of land is actually channeling the water into one channel. And it's taking it like a small stream all towards one direction. So he starts following that stream. And when he reaches the stream, at the end of the stream is a person with a hoe, and or a shovel, and he's steering the water into his garden. And the person watches him for some time and he says, what do you do? What is it that you do? He says, what do you mean? He says, well, look, I heard a voice above the clouds telling the clouds to go and water your garden. It didn't rain anywhere else. It just rained there, and the water came directly to you.
And this hadith in Sahih Muslim, Shaykh.
So what is it that you do? So he said, well, I take 1/3 of whatever I get from this garden. I use it for my needs. 1/3 of it I invest back into the garden, and 1/3 I spend in the path of Allah. And that's it. That's all I do. So everyone will find their own balance. Everyone will find their own balance. The idea is to start with what is fard. Those expenditures that are fard must always come first. Now we're getting into a little bit of the fiqh aspect of this, but it's a good question. Whatever is fard is always the most crucial, the most essential. In that you will find the haqq of Allah, such as zakat. zakat on our personal wealth, on our businesses, on our assets, whatever it is that we own. This is fard. Then the huquq that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed on us of other people, those are also fard. It is compulsory for a person to spend on their family, to look after their needs. If the parents are in need, they're not able to, then who does the responsibility fall on? It falls on the children. And similarly, those who are in close proximity to us, to look after them. So doing what's fard always comes first. Now, it doesn't mean that we stop there and we don't look further. There will be many occasions for us to spend. There will be many causes. There will be many opportunities. We spend in those according to the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, according to the best that we can. There is no limit of it has to be this much percent or that much percent. The lives of Sahaba are in front of us, radiallahu anhu ajma'een. They had various degrees. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu brought everything. Umar radiallahu anhu brought half of what he had. And others brought, varying amounts. So there is no set amount or set proportion that must be spent in order for us to come out of bukhl, out of stinginess, and enter the realm of generosity. But it's rather, as long as we're spending where we need to spend, then inshallah we are not going to be held from amongst the stingy people.
Barakallah feek, tabarakallah, Shaykh Aasim, Mufti Saab, Ustaduna, Mufti Wahab. As impressive as Mufti Aasim Saab was speaking, equally it was impressive having you silent today.
I appreciate that.
No,
I really do.
Mufti Wahab, would you like to?
No. I was going to add the fact that Mufti Aasim Saab, he just during his session mentioned the fact that all of this comes, when we embody the prophetic example of the life of our Prophet ﷺ and the obedience of his life in every level of our life, every part of our life, in every layer of our life. And this is something where a lot of us can find some lacking. I mean, all of us, not a lot of us, every single one of us. We may be good parents, but are struggling as children. We may be good children, but struggling as parents. We may be good teachers, but struggling as students, and on and on and on. The obedience of the Prophet ﷺ is such that it can fall into every layer and cover all the flaws that perhaps are there. So in reference to that vision, the book that was mentioned, that Ita'at al-Rasul, the obedience of the Prophet ﷺ, this is something that Mufti Aasim Saab has just recently, in the last few days, if not the last few weeks, has published. I have a copy, alhamdulillah. You stole a copy, alhamdulillah. And now, and hopefully, are you gonna read it, or just don't? Because you can't waste a copy. It's not right.
Right there, man. I'm going to enjoy
I
it.
remember the last time he came to Michigan, he asked me about a book. Did you read this book? And I responded. He asked me in Urdu, so I responded in Urdu, and I said, "Kitab padi hui hai." And he didn't get it the first time. He said, "Okay." I said, "Musab kitab padi hui hai." And then, of course, he picked it up, and there's a difference in Urdu, padhi hui hai or padi hui hai. So one means that it's sitting.
Your Urdu is so bad, you really can't tell the difference.
I know. I learned it from you, Bajan. So
our Urdu is like American Urdu.
So he obviously took a second because of my lack of eloquence in Urdu, but he realized one is that it's sitting there, and one is that it has been read. It was my intelligence of thinking of those two words, though.
Wow.
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 But beside the point. The point is that hopefully the books that Musab gave us, we actually read them, inshallah. That's the idea. And everyone else is available for everyone. And inshallah, I mean, the print, I'm not sure if you were able to go through the print. It's very well printed.
So beautiful.
And inshallah, and it's light. A lot of books that are written, they're heavier than they need to be. I think a lot of times we want to show that it's a very heavy book. But it's there. Inshallah, everyone can benefit from it.
It's not. This is not a book, Mufti Saab, original. This is not an ordinary book. This is a master research project. This could be given as, like Mufti Saab, PhD thesis work. It's so detailed, cited, translated well. For me, I love having the Arabic in the book.
It makes our life much easier.
Makes our life much, and the reference. So it's just, it's going to be a great asset, benefit to the whole ummah, inshallah. Mufti
inshallah, and for those that can't purchase it online, all of our Miftaah events will have these books available. you can take it, you can get it from there as well, inshallah, so you can benefit from it. Like we mentioned before, Mufti Aasim Sahib is not just part of the advisory board of Miftaah in our Islamic school and so on. He's in the top and scope of it, is seeing everything. And inshallah, we're hoping not only to benefit from him teaching us, but hopefully teaching all of our students as well, in our audience as well, in Michigan, all across the country.
If you enjoyed just 1 hour and a half of Mufti Aasim, so imagine us, we enjoyed years with him, and then our students were enjoying hours and years with him. Jazakumullah khair, Mufti Sahib. Mufti Wahab, can you tell us about the Hadith Intensive that's coming up and the big news that the whole world is waiting for?
I don't think it's a big news the whole world is waiting for.
Okay, so the Hadith Intensive.
The news that the whole world is waiting for, including myself, is when are the gas prices dropping? That's the news that everyone is waiting for.
No, I spend gas on the niyyah of sadaqah now. Like, all right, charity, to Uncle Sam. But the thing is, Mufti Wahab, the Arabic
Hadith Intensive is something that I hope everyone's looking forward to. It's taking place starting this Thursday. The idea is that a lot of times we get a lot of exposure to the Quranic sciences and tafsir, and it's very enjoyable. It feels good, and for whatever reason we overlook the tradition of Hadith. It feels bad even saying that. So this year we decided to have a Hadith Intensive rather than Arabic Intensive, which is mixed with Quran. That in this intensive we will be teaching specific selected chapters of Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari, the chapter of Iman, the chapter of knowledge, and we'll be covering the sciences that are related to Hadith and how we can understand Hadith, what makes a Hadith, what makes a Hadith rendered weak or da'if, or what makes it rendered to be authentic, and so on and so forth. There are many. The curriculum is all on the website. I don't want to bore the audience with the curriculum, but it will be very enjoyable, and it will give us the ability of actually thinking for ourselves. When someone says that we don't accept this or we do accept it, we learn how to be a little bit more critical. It's enjoyable to see people, including myself, who are always critical when things become impermissible, but we're not critical when things are permissible. When someone says, oh, it's okay for you to do this. Like when you ask a sheikh or an ustad or a mufti, is it okay for me to do this or not? And the sheikh says, yes. And we're not sure about it. We'll never ask, but where's your proof? How is it?
Because it's our nature. Like,
the idea is now to understand when and where to ask those questions, right? So it's supposed to give us the tools to understand these things in more detail and more depth beyond the surface, inshallah. And that was the first thing. Obviously, Bijan, the second thing you can talk about because it's you enjoy.
Second thing, both things are very interesting. And the first one is the most important one, the Hadith Intensive. The second one is just for our crowd, our youth, our community that are following of Miftaah for a while. We'll be hosting Khabib Nurmagomedov in San Francisco on the 26th of June. We had the champion Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is a proud, unapologetic Muslim, mashallah, and we were able to host him here at our Miftaah campus, right where I'm sitting. Over 2,000 people showed up, and very inspiring. The words, the teachings that he talked about, and he's definitely a world icon. And there's a lot the youth, the young generation can benefit from. He's other than his UFC career, it's just the upbringing that he had as a Muslim, and then bringing that into the limelight in front of the cameras, where people, when they come in front of the camera, how they change. So Khabib Nurmagomedov, San Francisco, the legacy continues. If you're from San Francisco, the Bay Area, or from the West Coast, this is a great chance. We don't know when we'll ever do it again. I don't think he will ever do something like that again in that area for a long time, and because there's so much demand all across the world for him to visit. This man was offered $50 million to fight, and he put it on the table and said, nope, my mom asked me to retire. I'm retiring. Like, we can't leave a controller in our hands, a remote, playing video games when our mother tells us to come upstairs to eat, or leave this and leave that. What a person. And no one's perfect. He's a human. He's not the prophet, but he is a great embodiment of respect and love for parents. And then he lost his father in the middle of his career and then retires. So the legacy continues. Great inspiration. Everyone asked me when they were asking about Khabib event last time, should we come? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? And I always say, you're going to regret it if you don't come. Because honestly, as a scholar, when we did the interview with him, it was so inspiring. I had people who left the event. They felt like their iman was their faith was reinstated. What we've been saying for 10 years as imams, 20 years, this man, because he's living that experience with women around, money around, being tossed at him, and he's telling the youth, guys, this is not what we're looking for. And so it's really powerful for the youth, and I recommend all parents to come with their families and benefit from both the Hadith Intensive and inshallah the Khabib ibn Magamirov event in San Francisco. Thank you everyone. Mufti Aasim Saab, thank you so much for your wisdom, for your knowledge. And we could be here and stay here and listen to you all day, all night. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring you near to us so we can benefit from you personally at a personal level. That's my greed right there, that I want to have you around for my own islah and benefit. And of course, the whole Michigan and America and North America will benefit. We're very happy that you're back in North America. We're very sad that Australia does not have your presence there, but I'm sure virtually they'll still benefit from you. And you have left students there. You have left a curriculum, a legacy that will continue to flourish in Australia, especially in Melbourne, Australia. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward Mufti Abdul Wahab for joining us, for being a great host by staying quiet today. And I promise in July, in the month of July, I will be in Pakistan, Mufti Abdul Wahab, so you can do the entire hosting yourself.
No. Just like I went to visit my in-laws and I join every Friday Night Live, you better join every Friday Night Live.
See, my in-laws don't have Wi-Fi. You know, I'm going to Pakistan.
Okay, Bajan, that's fine. Inshallah.
We'll figure it out. We're so happy you're back.
You,
by the way, did your in-laws take care of you?
Alhamdulillah, Bajan. You know.
No, be honest. They're not watching. Just tell me. Andar ki baat hai, between us.
Alhamdulillah took great care of me. Alhamdulillah, Bajan.
You took care of you?
Yeah.
Did you eat well?
Alhamdulillah.
Did you sleep on the floor? Did you sleep on the bed? Where did you sleep?
I slept. Alhamdulillah.
You slept?
Yeah.
That's a big deal too, because Mufti Wahab had not slept in the past couple of years.
So it's good.
I was telling Mufti Wahab, we were doing something, and I'm like, right when you get on that flight to Australia, that's a 16-hour useless flight. It's the longest and one of the most difficult flights. And mashallah, you slept.
I enjoyed that flight. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, you made it back safely. We're so happy. We have two of our guest scholars who are recently from Australia, and they're both in Michigan. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep them in Michigan. Barakallah feek. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.